always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to what comes in threes. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. They say that bad things come in threes. Three is a crowd as well, and that can lead to some upsets for one of the trio. This past Friday the 13th, we spoke of some numbers considered lucky and unlucky. 3 is an odd number that some might consider unlucky. But I might be able to prove that 3 isn't such a bad number after all. This hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Feist, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and Snow Patrol, chasing cars. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Remember the story of the 3 bears? Goldilocks decided to pay them a visit one day and sampled their porridge. One was too hot, the other too cold, but one was just right. Then she decided to sit in their chairs after the meal. One was too hard, another too soft, but one was just right. The same with their beds. One too hard, the other too soft, and the other one, well, of course you know how the story comes to an end. And that's when she got into trouble. But she wasn't that far from the truth. A Swahili proverb states, "There are 3 things that if a man does not know, he cannot live long in this world. What is too much for him? What is too little for him? And what is just right for him?" Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Natasha Bedingfield, Unwritten, and Edwin McCain, and I could not ask for more. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. There is an old parable from Saudi Arabia. Edna McCain, in the Heritage Book, 1978, published by Collier Macmillan Canada Limited, wrote, and I quote, "My father enjoyed asking youngsters to solve the following puzzle. An old man decided it was time to divide his herd of 18 camels among his 3 sons. He kept the camel he loved best for himself and had 17 left. As was the custom, he gave 1/2 the herd to his eldest son, 1/3 to the second one, and 1/9 to the youngest. Question: how did he do it? Answer: he added his own camel to the 17, making the total 18. 9 camels went to one son, 6 to the second, and 2 to the third. Now there was 1 camel left, the one the old man loved best, and he took it back for himself." My father liked to end the answer to the puzzle with the old Arabian saying, "If you give away that which you love, it will be returned to you." Unquote. I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. From Abbey Road, the Beatles. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Anita Baker giving you the best that I got, and David Gates and Bread with everything I own. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. John Marks Templeton, quoted by Gary Wolfe in Wired, said, "3 of my children are medical doctors. They know 100 times as much about the body as my grandfather knew. But they don't know much more about the soul than he did." If spiritual leaders would use scientific research, there is no reason we couldn't multiply spiritual information as we have scientific information. Unquote. And Beulah Collins from the Los Angeles Times Syndicate wrote, and I quote, "Several cotton farmers were whiling away a winter afternoon around the pot-bellied stove when they became entangled in a heated discussion on the merits of their respective religions. One of the farmers had been sitting quietly just listening. The group turned to him and demanded, 'Who's right, old Jim? Which one of these religions is the right one?' 'Well,' said Jim thoughtfully, 'you know, there are 3 ways to get from here to the cotton gin. You can go over the big hill. That's shorter, but it's a powerful climb. You can go around the east side of the hill. That's not too far, but the road is rougher in tarnation. Then you can go around the west side of the hill, which is the longest way, but the easiest. But you know,' he said, looking them squarely in the eye, 'when you get there, the gin man don't ask you how you come. He just asks you, man, how good is your cotton?'" I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The 3 is in the name of the classic rock group Three Dog Night and Easy to Be Hard. Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying, and Sarah McLachlan with World on Fire. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Rabbi Mark Gelman and Monsignor Thomas Hartman from How Do You Spell God, published by Morrow, wrote, "There is an old story about a king who had a beautiful ring and 3 sons. Each son wanted the ring. When the king died, he left 3 rings for his sons, and a note that said, 'My dear sons, one of these rings is real, and 2 are fake. The way you will know who has the real ring is that the son with the real ring will be generous and kind to all people.' Each of the 3 spent the rest of his life being good to prove that he had the real ring." Unquote. And Sidney J. Harris, published by Field Newspaper Syndicate, wrote, "The 3 hardest tasks in the world are neither physical feats nor intellectual achievements, but moral acts. To return love for hate, to include the excluded, and to say, 'I was wrong.'" Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Don Henley, Linda Ronstadt, and Elton John. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Finally, John Lubbock, and quoted in the October 1982 issue of the Reader's Digest, said, "There are 3 great questions which in life we have over and over again to answer. Is it right or wrong? Is it true or false? Is it beautiful or ugly? Our education ought to help us to answer these questions." Unquote. As you can see, 3 is a very important number. Lovers and Other Strangers. From iTunes and CHFI.com. I hope you will tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.